Hi, friends. I'm Caleb Anderson, and this is the Spirit Farm Podcast. Spiritual growth for real people in real time. It's my job to help you see that all growth is spiritual growth. Anything that helps you connect with your true self, with your Creator God, and with other people is helping you grow spiritually, because you are a spiritual being. That everything we see and touch in the material, it's here, it's now, but it's not forever, it's not eternal, and it's almost like the Matrix. And if we could just get behind the curtain to see what's real, something else unfolds, something else comes alive within us and catapults us further on the journey of who we are meant to be. Now, I want to share with you a teaching today, but before I do, I want to tell you that this was birthed in my mind last night as I was lying in bed, unable to go to sleep. I was lying there and I had these ideas. I was like, oh, that's a podcast. Oh, that's tomorrow's podcast. And then I was wrestling with my thoughts of, do I get up and write this down? No, I'm tired. I want to sleep. And it reminded me of a famous comedian, Mitch Hedberg, who passed on before his time. But he had this hilarious bit where he said that his ideas for his best jokes came when he was lying in bed. But if he thought of a joke and his notebook and pen were across the room, he had to convince himself that the joke wasn't funny. So that was my wrestle. Do I get up to go write this down, or do I I'll remember it. Just remember this. When you wake up in the morning, remember this. I eventually got up and wrote it down. And here is what I wrote down. Why so many Christians are mean and how to be different. That's what we want to talk about today. Why so many Christians are mean and how you and I are going to be different. Now, here's the irony is I don't even call myself a Christian, which is interesting because my middle name is literally Christian. Caleb Christian Anderson is my name. But here's the deal. The word for me has become too political. It's become unhelpful. It's become ostracizing. There's people that are in and out and this group and that group, and then it's split into thousands of denominations. It's crazy. I find it unhelpful. And when you look back historically, Jesus didn't seem to have any interest in creating a Christian religion. That was not his objective. That was not his motivation. He didn't use the term. He didn't talk about the idea. He just came proclaiming good news. He just claimed proclaiming good news that in a culture where Jews thought that they had the corner on the market, that they were the ones that were right, that they were the chosen people, that they were the only ones who understood God and his laws and how to live, Jesus comes in as a Jew and says, yes, and. He comes in, born a Jew, living a perfect life, a rabbi of Jewish teaching, and says, yes, and. Yes, Jews, you're included, so is everybody else. And he claimed to usher in a new era of good news that everyone can have a connection to their Creator God, that everyone is forgiven and has access. And then the people that followed Jesus in the years to come, they didn't call themselves Christians. Christians was a negative term coined by people who hated them. They just called themselves followers of Jesus or followers of the way. And they went telling Jews and Greeks and Arabs and any other culture that you could, they went to the cultures and said, hey, you need to know about this Jesus. So all that to say, it doesn't matter if you call yourself a Christian, think of yourself as a Christian or not. What we want to look at is God and the person of Jesus, but to uncover some of the baggage, some of the crap that makes Christians or religious people mean, and then what to do about it. So here's our little outline. This is where we are going. The first thing, why so many Christians are mean, is the weight of good versus evil. The weight of good versus evil. Weight, I mean, if you just think about it in life, weight causes us to get grumpy. When I'm carrying heavy weight, I get a little bit irritated. I want to get somewhere faster because I just want to unload this thing. When you're carrying a heavy burden, you're a little bit irritable. You resent the person who put this burden on you. You resent the people who expect you to keep carrying it on their behalf. Weight makes us grumpy, and we were never meant to carry the weight of good and evil. In the very beginning, God says, he puts Adam and Eve, he puts the original humans in a garden, and he says, hey, it's all yours. Cultivate this with me, co-create with me, you manage this, name some animals, work the land, this is all yours to enjoy. And then in the afternoon, we're gonna walk together in the cool of the garden. Oh, just this one thing. All the trees, all the fruit, all the veggies have Adam, but there's this one tree in the center, don't eat that one. It is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. We weren't meant to carry that burden. We weren't meant to decide what's good and what's bad, what's right and what's wrong. That wasn't meant for our human experience. We were meant to just simply trust God and do what he said, to walk in relationship with him, this living and breathing relationship, and trust that as we walk with him, talk with him, and do the things that he's doing, that we're good, and that we don't have to carry literally the weight of the world in eternity and the tension, the knowledge, the division of good and evil. So people that take it upon themselves to be the judges and the jury are grumpy. They carry a burden that they were not meant to carry, and they don't get it right. That's one of the reasons why Jesus spoke several times about not judging. Don't judge, or the same way that you judge, other people will judge you, because they're all screwing it up. They're all trying to figure this out. And what God invites us to do is just trust him, walk with him still, and walk with him in relationship, be with other people in relationship. If you find yourself grumpy, if you find yourself weighed down, if you find yourself carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders, it might be because you're trying to be judge and jury and distinguish between everything that's right and wrong. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't absolutes, but there aren't as many as you think. I was in Africa once, and the people, as we were entering into this new culture, they pulled us aside and they said, hey, this culture is different than yours. The people here are more affectionate than what you're used to in America. So they just hold hands, and if someone comes up and wants to hold your hand, or you shake their hand and they hold it for a long time, it's just part of the culture. Just go with it, embrace it. If they're gonna hug, they might put their arm around you while you're singing a song or while you're walking together. No big deal, that's just a part of the deal. So me and my friends were like, yeah, that works, I get that. And so we're out walking on the street this one day, and this young dude comes up to one of my buddies, and he puts his arm around him. And my buddy's like, hey, not totally comfortable with this. I'm like, hey, it's the culture. Embrace it, dude. And when in Rome, this is where we are. Just go with it. It's a nice guy. And so this young, I don't know, he was probably like 15, 16 years old, this kid. And the kid, he puts his arm around my buddy, and they walk a little bit further. And now he takes his other arm and he's kind of stroking my buddy's arm. And my buddy is, not into this, and the kid doesn't speak English. And he's like, hey, Caleb, I don't know if this is a cultural deal, man. This is getting a little bit uncomfortable. I'm like, hey, the guy said that we're in their culture, so you just got to roll with it, walk with it, and embrace the culture that we're in. And then the kid, while he's rubbing this guy's arm, he reaches his other arm around his waist and starts playing in his belly button. And I'm like, dude, it's just the vibe here. We gotta go with it. We get back to camp where the people are that brought us into, that were giving us the lowdown, and we explain the situation. And the group leader that was hosting us, he's like, oh yeah, no, that's not normal. But we didn't know. I mean, it's, you're in a different culture. My point is, what is normal for us here in this culture, in this context, might be completely inappropriate in another, or vice versa. What we think is an absolute truth here, this is rude, or this is wrong, or this is right, or this is how we handle it. In a next culture, in a different area, in a different context, with a different way of living and growing up, they have completely unique experiences and perspectives. So those things need to be taken into account. And people that are feeling the weight of good and evil and think that they are always right, that their perspective is the right way, that their culture is the right one, the way they do things is the right way to do things, they're carrying a burden they weren't meant to carry, and they get grumpy. We want to release some of that burden. We want to release some of that burden and embrace the differences in our humanity, the differences in our cultures and experiences. Second thing, why so many Christians are mean. The pressure to perform. The pressure to perform. I felt this one growing up because I was the oldest of 3 boys and 11 grandkids. I was the captain of all the sports teams all the way through college, and I felt pressure to perform. I had people that were friends with my parents or worked for my parents that came up to me and said, "Thank you for being such a role model to my son, little Johnny," or whatever. That kind of stuff happened all the time, and I felt like I had to keep and uphold this perfect standard to be a role model, to be an example, and I was a teenager. And I just felt like I couldn't screw up. I couldn't screw up in any of the outward ways. I needed to sustain this projected sense of self so that I could be an example to other people. Now, there's a good in that. Yes, we want to be role models. But when it becomes a pressure to perform that makes us mean, that makes us insecure, that makes us hide our true selves, we're screwing it up. And here's the reality. The world around you, the people around you, they don't need perfection. They can't relate to it. People do not relate to your strengths. They relate to your weaknesses because they know themselves. They know that they struggle. They know that they have tendencies. They know that they have insecurities, and they want to connect with a human on that level. It's been said that the most famous sermon or the best sermon that you can preach is, "Me too. Me too. I struggle with that too. That's my issue too. I've been there. I've had that. I've been broken. I struggle with that. That's hard for me." That we relate and we connect on that level. We don't have to perform and be perfect. It's actually disconnecting people from us, and they don't believe you anyway. They don't believe the perfection. They don't believe in our projected image that we've got it all together. What people want is a connection with a real human who has real issues and real struggles. When religious baggage, when we feel like we have to put on all this fake projection, when we feel like we have to put on this and put on that and look like this and not screw up in that way and make sure that we fit in this culture, this subculture, we isolate, we push people away, and we get mean. We drive people away from us. We put them in categories, and they feel like they're not living up to our level of performance. And it's not real. It's not real. The reality is that we're all the same. Insecurities, struggles, weaknesses, and that's what people relate to. Why so many Christians are mean? The sheltered bubble. The sheltered bubble. This is another tool of isolation. And I get it. It comes by well-meaning communities and parents and influencers trying to keep their children out of harm's way. But inadvertently, they put their kids in a bubble that they weren't meant to live in. Inadvertently, they make the culture bad and we're good. And they rail against the culture and they make fun of Oprah and they say that Hollywood's going to hell and they do all this stuff because we get it, right? We understand they're trying to protect their kids. They're trying to protect their sense of what they think is right and wrong. But what they're doing is they're creating an insular bubble and keeping people out. And when we do that, we get out of touch with reality and we look mean instead of stepping into the culture with good news. With good news. Jesus' example, good news. Everyone has access to God. Good news. There's a better way of living. The confidence that says, look, these choices that you're making, they're leading you down a path that you don't even want to go. It's actually better this way. It's better to follow this God. It's better to walk in confidence and peace and connection with your Creator. You're going to feel fulfilled. You're going to live the life that you want. You're going to come alive in your soul. It's better this way instead of, oh, let's stay away from this big bad culture. No, please. Step into it with goodness and grace and creativity and joy and love and impact the thing. Change the thing for good. Be a force of good in your home, in your workplace, in your community, in the culture at large, wherever you find yourself. The last reason that we're going to go over today, why so many Christians are mean, is the grace leak. The grace leak. We have to re-up on our grace every day. We'll talk about that next. But here's what that means, the grace leak. What it means is we all have a tendency to forget. Wherever you are in your spiritual journey, you're like me, we have a tendency to forget. I have a tendency to forget how I used to be. I get most frustrated with religious and judgmental people because I used to be one. So when I'm not having grace for those types of people and I put them into a category or a box and I'm judging them, which isn't right, by the way, it's because I've forgotten that that's who I used to be until I received more of God's grace, until I got more in touch with who I was meant to be, until I experienced more joy in my soul and more satisfaction in my life. We have a grace leak. And it's often the things that we least like about ourselves that trigger us in other people. And so we need to just let God just pour his grace on us day by day, moment by moment, all the time, because we need it. We need it on behalf of other people. We need to remember that we're all the same. There is no sin scale. There is no sin scale where the ones and twos are no big deal, but God forbid the sevens or eights are not. Those people, we put those people into a category called, prisoner or, whatever, convict. No. There's no sin scale. It's all the same. We're all the same. We need grace as much as anyone else, and we need it replenished all the time and every day. So these are 4 of the biggest reasons why Christians are so mean, because of the tension of trying to carry the burden of good versus evil and play judge or jury, the pressure that they feel like they have to perform, which, by the way, they become critical of other people who aren't performing that way because they secretly wish that they could be too. They secretly wish they could be doing those things. Oh, that looks kind of fun. Oh, I wonder what that's like. And so they judge those people because they don't get to have that experience. And so they get bitter and angry and mean. But it's not about performance. It's not about that. We relate to each other's humanity. Good versus evil, perform, the sheltered bubble. It's us against the culture. Keep the big bad world away from me. And the grace leak, that we need to remember grace every day. We need the good news for ourselves every day. So that's why so many Christians are mean. And here's what to do about it, or here's how to be different. The first thing is look through lenses of love. Look through lenses of love. Here's what I mean. When Jesus came and he was walking on this earth, he said, yeah, you've got like 613, you've got all these laws and that no one keeps, by the way. Here's the thing. You can chuck all those laws. Nah, that's not really what he said, but he said all of those laws fall underneath. They submit to this one. And he said it to his followers as he was about to leave. He said, love others as I have loved you. That's the deal. Earlier, when he was asked what's the most important commandment, it was love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Love other people the way you love yourself. His point was very clear, over and over again, emphasized time after time, in encounter after encounter, love is the deal. Love other people the way I have loved you. All the other laws, all the other objectives, all the other standards, rules, morality, everything falls underneath love. So see everything, read everything, interact with everyone, have every conversation, dialogue, argument, whatever, with a lens of love. keeping that the main thing. If you disagree about an interpretation of a Bible verse, if you disagree with the way that someone is playing something out in their life, if you disagree with how someone is talking about something from stage, if you disagree with how people are treating other people, if you have an objection, have that objection through a lens of love, recognizing that that's what it all comes down to, that we see through love and that we're elevating these other people, and that the rules and the regulations and the hoops, hurdles, and handshakes, that all comes down the road. It's not unimportant, but this is just most important, that everything you're wrestling with and trying to discern should be seen through the lens of love. Keep the main thing, that you're gonna love people sacrificially the way the God of the universe loved you. You're gonna extend people crazy amounts of grace because that's what the God of the universe does with you. See everything through the lens of love. That's first. Don't get hung up on all the doctrinal positions. Don't get hung up on all the political positions. Don't get hung up on what mom and dad or how they're saying or how this person's judging you. Make sure that this is the place that you start. And the next thing you do to be different is choose relationships over being right. Relationships over being right. This is better illustrated in marriage or in a serious relationship than any other place. If with Hillary, if with my wife, I am right about something, I know it, I've got video evidence of something, this can be proven, but I'm rude, I'm insensitive, I'm arrogant about it, I just want her to know that she is wrong, I lose. I can be right and I can be wrong. I can be right and still lose the relationship. I can be right and still lose the fight if I am mean, if I am rude, if I am insensitive. Why? Because the relationship matters more than being right, which is what drives me crazy about some of the mean Christians when they post position statements, when they post on social media about what their stance is on an issue. Who cares if you're right or wrong? You might be right. You might not be too, by the way, but you might be right. But I'll tell you what's for sure is you've lost a whole bunch of relationships because the people that are on the other side of your position that you just made are not even going to talk to you about it because your position is obviously more important than your relationship with them. But if you treat the relationship as primary, as most important, then you can actually still have an influence on that person's life for good. Then you can actually still engage with this person, point them to their God, invite them up, call them up. That's another pet peeve, accountability. Accountability shouldn't be calling out. This is me calling out. Accountability is calling up. This is who you are. This is the potential I see in you. You're better than this. There's more for you. It's the same. When you're worried about being right, you don't care about the relationship. Relationship first. And then over time and in love and in grace, you can help people maybe come your way, or maybe you find a different path of both of you that you can walk together. So how to be different? Look through lenses of love, choose relationship over being right, embrace failure. Embrace failure. Not like you want to just go screw up on purpose just for fun, but embrace your weaknesses. Embrace the things that you have already screwed up, because when you do, when you own them, when you're honest about them, when you receive grace for them, and when you learn from them, they become the building blocks of your future success or your future growth. It's embracing failure that makes us authentic. It's embracing failure that makes us real and relatable. And so it's that idea that people will connect to, and they're gonna say, I wanna be around that person because they don't take themselves too seriously. They know that they're not perfect, and I can relate to that. It's the people that can't admit when they're wrong. It's the people that can't embrace failure. It's the people that pretend they have it all together and are projecting a false image that isolates, that pushes people away, and that just makes you seem mean. But you can tear all that down and you can be an ambassador of grace and love when you admit your own weaknesses and failures. As part of the thing, it makes you a better human being. You're going to enjoy your life more, by the way. Because when you admit your failure, you can learn to pivot and go another direction. When you're ignoring it, you're going to keep repeating the problems. You're going to keep repeating the patterns because you're in la-la land pretending that it's not real. When you admit failure, you can ask for help. You can receive grace, and you can ask for practical help too. It just makes us better human beings. And then the fourth and final thing, how to be different, is to inhale grace. Like you're breathing. It's the breath that we breathe. I do it really practically on a daily basis, sometimes multiple times a day. I will literally sit with my hands open in a posture of receiving. I will close my eyes and I will pray to God. By the way, some people call these kinds of things universe or whatever, and they have trouble with God. I don't care. I just call it God. And I would invite you to not care either. Let's just say it's all God's. So I just pray and I just say, God, I inhale your grace. I breathe in that your spirit is breath, your spirit is life. That in the very origin of humanity, that you breathed life into the original human beings. Would you breathe life into me? I inhale the grace of life, that I'm even alive today, that I even have a relationship with you, that I even exist. And the blood flows through my veins. I'm grateful. I inhale grace. Thank you that you've forgiven me. Thank you that I am free. Thank you that you don't hold anything against me. Thank you that I don't have to have any shame inside of me. I inhale grace. And then I exhale judgment. I exhale bitterness. I exhale my need to be right or my need for certainty. And I breathe in again. God, let me receive your grace, your goodness, your love. And help me to release my own judgments, my categories that I put people into, the ways that I isolate myself and push others away. I don't want to be that guy. And it is as simple as that. Not easy, because this is a day-by-day, moment-by-moment thing, but simple. Breathe in God as our source of life. Breathe in his grace and goodness, his love. God, help me to see everything through this lens. Every encounter, every person, every opportunity. I don't want to be one of those mean, bitter, religious people who's upset at the big bad world, who hates their own life, who feels so much shame that they just keep stuffing it down. They can't be real about it. I want to live. And I want to be an inspiration for other people to live and to know you and to walk with you and to experience grace and goodness. Just like the very breath that we breathe. That's all for this episode. We'll see you next time.